Let's talk about the colors on this piece. Probably you have seen the video about how I painted it, so I'm not going to focus on the how. I'm going to talk more about the decision I have to take to do it. So if you remember, I showed you this piece before painting, and I told you about the texture, and I told you that I didn't know if I wanted to go with a lot of color or just in the opposite with not much color. Finally, you helped me with that because you said that less color maybe. So I decided to go for less color when there's texture. So there's a kind of rule here. It's if the texture is rich, the color is going to be poor, and if the texture is poor, the color is going to be rich. So that's all. So we have 3 areas of color, and all the rest is dark and low saturated colors. So the base, let's start with the metal, with the dark part. So the base I did for that, it's the dark iron effect. You know how I do it because it's very simple. I use an acrylic, black acrylic or chalk paint for the base, so it's very dark and it's very matte. After that I do dry brush with graphite acrylics, so it's a little bit satin, and at the end I add the wax, silver wax. So we have all this contrast here, and it looks very metallic and it looks very interesting. But I wanted something that was not colorful, but I wanted something rich. So I want to add vibration with that. So I took 3 decisions. One is it's not going to be all metal. I knew that when I was making the shape, because if you see here, I use this old wood texture here. So I decided that it is going to be dark too, but it's not going to be shiny at all, and a little bit more gray. So if you look at that from the distance, it looks that all this is the same thing. Can you focus? Yes. All this is the same thing, but when we are going close, you see that this is something completely different to this. And this something rich, and I think it's telling a story, and I think it's nice. So that's the first decision. Second decision is I wanted a little bit of rust, but I didn't want the rust to go everywhere. So if you saw the video, I usually put the iron paint, and after that I spray the activator all on the piece, and that gives a very natural way of having this rust going everywhere. But I didn't want that. I want all this to be very black. So what I did is to mix the iron paint with the activator, and I mix it here, and paint with that. So I was putting all the mix, and it was rusting. So we have these small holes here. We have like some details here with a little bit of rust. We have here also, and we have some splashes, but just a few of them. There's not a lot. So that's the second decision, to make this dark, low saturated color look rich. And the third decision was that I was not going to play just with silver wax. I wanted to use a little bit of gold wax. So you can see here one point, another point, just a few things that is not, again, is not a lot of vibration here, but you can see that there's something happening. It's not a flat thing. I think it's more clear here if you want to see it. So you can see that this is gold, this is silver, this is gold, this is silver. A little bit here, you can see it. So that's giving a little bit of vibrance of between cold and warm colors in the less possibility of them. So there's no saturation at all, but we have this richness. So I think this is nice at the end. And finally, we have the painted parts, the face part. It's, as usual, is the white base, the Naples yellow red, and all that. I decided not to use orange. You know that sometimes I use orange instead of red, but there's not orange at all. I decided to go for the bravest contrast here. So it's all red in acrylic and colored pencils. And for the eyebrows, I decided to go for a big green, because we have talked a lot about that on our Telegram group. So I am always saying that it's better if you use an olive green and low saturated greens, but I decided to try, and I used the one of the brightest greens I have, but it's a very nice one. It's an emerald one, and I just tried. So it's really saturated here. It's really green, and I try to melt it a little bit here with an olive tree in colored pencil and brown. So the transition, I think it's smooth, but we have a high pond here. And another thing that is important is that the transition between the skin and the black here, it's huge. I decided I didn't want the white go until here because, you know, if the shape is well defined, I think it's more elegant not to define it as with the color. So you can see the transitions here. Even here we have less space, but there's still a transition between that. And I think that's all about the piece. I'm very happy. It's not complex. It's very simple, but what I like more on this piece is it looks very simple, but it has this little contrast that makes the piece more interesting. So when you see in that, you can just see a dark, generic thing with the hand and the face painted, but after that you are getting close and you see the wood contrast with the metal, you see the gold and the silver, you see all these small details that I think it's making the piece more interesting. What do you think?